it was to potentially happen, I think Marc Gasol would have to be okay with accepting the same type of role that Valanciunas is accepting right now with the Raptors. Is that he's it's like more of a platoon role where he sometimes starts and he sometimes doesn't start. I don't think that one of the things that really makes the Raptors, I think, one of the better teams is they're able to do a lineup with Serge Ibaka at the 5, but Siakam at the 4, and so on. And when they face teams that play bigger lineup, that's when they put Valanciunas in the lineup, and it's either Ibaka coming off the bench or Siakam. Now, I don't know if Marc Gasol would be willing to accept that role. I'm pretty sure he sees himself as a starter. I mean, he's been a veteran for years now. He won a Defensive Player of the Year award. He probably has a very high opinion of himself.
I mean, he's shown that over the last
So
2 seasons.
I think there might be chemistry issues. Now, we've also known for the past 2 years that he hasn't been the best locker room guy. I mean, he comes out and he says things. He questions the coach. I could see him going into and questioning first-year head coach Nick Nurse and kind of ruining what they have going on there. Now, from Memphis' perspective, when I look at the trades, I don't see you're not getting any assets really in return here. And if you're going to give up Marc Gasol, I would rather see a package where obviously you're not going to get a first-round pick from the Phoenix Suns, but you want to get at least maybe a first-round pick from a team that's, is kind of in the middle. You want to get something for Marc Gasol where you could build around in the future, because of Valanciunas and Norman Powell, yeah, they're decent players, but they're also not at the same timeline as Triple J. And, this team's got to bottom out for a few years before they could, start looking like an NBA team again. I just think Valanciunas and Norman Powell it doesn't make much sense on the team.
I agree. I'm going based off, like you said, I mean, we both listen to a lot of podcasts. We both watch a lot of, at least I do for sure, watch a lot of YouTube videos. And from everything that's sort of been thrown out there is that Gasol's trade value is very low, and you're not going to get more than probably 2 to 3 rotational pieces, and they won't be the best rotational pieces, and maybe a second-round pick. So, again, we got to take that with a grain of salt, because we don't know his trade value until he actually gets traded. We don't know how other teams value him until he actually gets traded. Reports, everything could be reported. I don't necessarily know how much of everything that's reported is true, but I would venture to guess it's probably at about 50% of everything that's reported is actually true. So we have to take everything with a grain of salt, but yes, that's what I was basing this trade package off of.
Okay, so I'm going to propose to you a trade with the Boston Celtics. And I'll give you... Now, we talked about the Boston Celtics making a deal with the Washington Wizards where the Celtics would pick up Beal, and then I believe it was Hayward and Jaylen Brown. Obviously, there'd have to be another player, maybe another Morris brother in the deal, so to make salaries match. But I would propose this trade, and I'll make my argument here. Gordon Hayward straight up for Otto Porter with the Wizards. The reason why Boston makes this deal, they get Otto Porter, who's a little bit younger. They're pretty much both on 3-year deals. Their salaries are, $5 million apart, so the Boston actually saves a little bit money here. Now, they lose Gordon Hayward, who hasn't been a very efficient or good player this year on the team. They gain Otto Porter, who's a better defender, and who's a little bit more of a consistent scorer. Now, in this deal, Boston is kind of giving up on Gordon Hayward, which we know coming off the injury that he's coming from, it takes a long time to recover. So next year, Gordon Hayward might come back to being a better player. But I think the fit for Boston may be better with Otto Porter, who's not going to want the ball as much as Gordon Hayward, who's not considered to be as great as an offensive player as Gordon Hayward. And I think that it could just kind of help with the team chemistry of the Celtics and his added bonus of being a better defender, even though Gordon Hayward is not a bad defender. Now, the Wizards would do this deal because, they get rid of Gordon Hayward. They don't get rid of his salary, but dumping his salary for nothing seems like a pretty difficult task. And they do take that chance that Gordon Hayward can become a better player, the player that he was before he got injured. And, that player is better than Otto Porter, and it could help improve the team.
All right, yeah, I think actually this is one of your best ideas that I've heard. I like it. I really do like it. I think, like you said, I mean, Porter, I think, would be a great fit in Boston. I think, again, like you said, you're giving up on Gordon Hayward, but at this stage, you're trying to win a championship. Porter's been playing real good the last couple of weeks. I think that's a move that might really solidify their starting lineup and make them just improve their team definitely for this year and probably keep them afloat over the next couple of years. And like you said, with Gordon Hayward, if Gordon Hayward could go back to even being 80-90% of the player he was, Washington's getting good value out of that. Then getting themselves a big three once John Wall comes back from injury. Will it be the best big three? Probably not. But that would be a solid pickup for Washington should both of those players recover. So,
And then also the other thing is, if you could trade John Wall, it'd still be a nice lineup with both Beal and if Hayward comes back to being the player that was. I mean, two pretty similar players. You know, they both can make their own shots. They both have can consistently shoot the three really well, which would be an interesting lineup. And they both seem like pretty good team guys.
Yeah. And one thing I will mention real quick is, yes, probably Markieff Morris would have to be thrown in because there's no way Washington's taking on an additional $5 million for this year since they're already pretty bad in the luxury tax. But
that would only improve the trade for the Celtics, right?
Yeah, yes. I mean, yes. Markieff,
if you're looking to win,
theoretically, yes. Markieff is a free agent this year. It would provide them with some depth, essentially. Yeah, it wouldn't be bad. I'm sure Boston would probably have to throw in some type of asset in return for Markieff Morris because Markieff Morris is still a valuable player. But yeah, I mean that just in basically ins and outs here. I mean we're just covering all bases here. But yeah.
All right. Do you have a trade for the Boston Celtics?
Boston, no. I think, like I said, I proposed the Bradley Beal deal a couple of weeks ago. Essentially, it was a 3-team trade with Bradley Beal. Essentially, with Bradley Beal, Satoransky, and Markieff Morris coming to Boston. And outgoing would have been Terry Rozier, Hayward, and Jaylen Brown. It was, again, now with Washington, as much as I think this deal would still be beneficial for Boston and probably beneficial for Washington as well, all things considered, because they were getting back in this deal. I had a 3-team deal with Orlando where they were getting back Isaac, Brown, and Hayward. Isaac and Brown, two very young players. I think Washington, if they were in rebuild mode, that would have been an excellent package for them. But they're not, so that one is hard to propose. With the Terry Rozier situation, yes, I think that's where it kind of becomes, okay, should they trade Terry Rozier? Should they not? Regardless of whether they should they not, I don't think they will. And I still do think that they will match any type of deal that Terry Rozier is given this summer. And the reason why I say that is this. There's a lot of teams going in this summer with a lot of cap space. And I think even after all the Tier 1, Tier 2, and even probably Tier 3 free agents are done, there will be a solid 3 or 4 teams left that have probably somewhere between $10 and $15 million of cap space. This year, only the Kings are left with any cap space whatsoever. I think there'll be about 3 or 4 teams next year who are in that position. And they're going to save that if there's some type of contract that a team wants to throw out, they'll be able to pick up that contract. So I think with Boston, it might be smart for them to match that any offer thrown at Rozier. And then midway through next season, if you have to, because obviously matching Rozier is going to put you way above the luxury tax. And I mean, that should be okay with Boston because then you could trade them away next winter as well, right before the next year's trade deadline, and pick up much less cap space from a team that has cap space available and get yourself some type of asset. Probably won't be the best asset again since you're giving up a lot of money to a team with cap space. However, some type of cap space will be available. So for that reason, I don't know if the Boston will be willing to trade Terry Rozier, and they want to keep him as assurance just in case Kyrie Irving does leave.
Sure, I mean, you should be able to get something for Terry Rozier even if you trade because he's a good player. Like it's not like you're trading away. You're not dumping a garbage salary. You're trading away a decent player. So I don't think that matching his would be the worst thing in the world. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the next team. I believe in the fourth are the Indiana Pacers, but with the recent news about the injuries, I don't think the Pacers. I don't have a deal with the Pacers. Unfortunately, I do think. I mean, we brought up. I mean, I know it's been discussed about Mike Conley being traded to that team, and maybe even for next year that would help improve the team. Do you have a trade for the Pacers?
Yeah, like you said, Mike Conley would be good. I mean, if they do make a trade, it's not going to be a big trade. I think we got to look at the players available here for them to trade. Kyle O'Quinn is one. He had a solid year last year. Hasn't been able to make the rotation there in Indiana this year. So I think maybe a smaller trade like Kyle O'Quinn going to Minnesota for Anthony Tolliver, who could hit some 3-point shots, is a possibility. Maybe sending Kyle O'Quinn to Sacramento for some smaller players like Scala Bassier and Yogi Ferrell. That's an option. Tyreke Evans is available from everything we've been hearing. Tyreke Evans is available for trade. So are either one of Corey Joseph or Derek Collison. Again, at this point with Oladipo out, they probably have to get themselves some type of player. If they're going to make a trade, it should be for someone who's a scorer. Perhaps a Terrence Ross in Orlando could net you some, could help you out. Wesley Matthews out of Dallas might not cost you that much. Potentially a Corey Joseph and a Tyreke Evans. I don't know. It's hard to gauge what Indiana wants to do now, specifically because Victor Oladipo's injury just occurred, and they're probably not sure what to do. On the one hand, they're still going to remain a top 5 seed, barring some type of crazy surge from a Brooklyn or from a Charlotte. They're going to remain a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference. They're going to make the playoffs. Now, unless they remain a 3rd seed, I don't see them making out of the first round of the playoffs. If they're a 3rd seed, yes, they could probably beat the 6th seed even without Oladipo. But at this stage, if I'm Indiana, unless I could swing a trade for Mike Conley and maybe a small-time trade like the two I just mentioned, I probably would choose to remain pat. Just stay pat where I'm at. Sure, if you could trade out Tyreke Evans straight up for another player that you think could help you this year, of course, that makes sense. Why not? But I would not take on any long-term salary unless it's someone like a Mike Conley, just because I would like to leave that room open for next year to resign my players, such as Bogdanovich and Thaddeus Young, and try to go out and grab a Kemba Walker who will be available as a free agent. Might be a long shot, but I think that should be the number one player they pursue during this offseason.
All right, so Philadelphia 76ers, I believe I brought this trade up before, so I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about it, but I had Gallinari, and then you're trading away Chandler Fulton, like Zaire Smith, and maybe a draft pick in this deal. I mean, obviously the Clippers would, getting some more salary cap for this offseason, and, they would take a couple projects on that maybe would help them in the future. Like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on this deal because I believe we talked about it.
Yeah, we did talk about it. I remember this one. I like Gallinari. I think Gallinari would be a good fit there. I think the only problem with the proposed trade there is the Clippers and their seemingly big desire to remain a playoff contender, and it makes sense why. They really do want to show Kawhi Leonard that hey, we are legitimate even without you. Imagine what we'll do with you here. It makes perfect sense. I've heard a lot of rumors of Clippers being pretty much the most active teams in terms of being buyers at this year's trade deadline. So I don't see them sending out Danilo Gallinari anywhere, specifically because they'll also have that option in the summer should they need additional cap room if two players such as Durant and Kawhi agree to go there. So I think this would be a fantastic trade for Philadelphia. I don't think it'll happen. I think for Philadelphia, I'm sorry, Joe.
No, I was just going to say that the only argument I would have there is like it opens up the cap where you could be like, hey, Kawhi, now we have the money to bring in a Jimmy Butler.
But they know no matter what happens, I should say no matter what happens, but if Gallinari plays as steady as he's been, as consistent as he's been all year, trades are going to be available for Gallinari. That's not going to change, specifically more in the summer when there'll be a lot of teams with cap space who will be willing to take on as good of a player as Danilo Gallinari. There'll be a lot of teams, so you're probably even better off. You probably could get more value for a Gallinari in the summer as compared to what you could get now. Plus, not to mention, Markelle Fultz has, well, I guess it wouldn't matter because you're trading away Gallinari's contract, but I was going to say Markel Fultz does still have about just under 10